So a very warm welcome. Good morning to everyone joining from Europe, and good afternoon to everyone joining from India and from other places around the world. Welcome to the first session. Our today's guest is Daniela Mazavan. I will introduce her later. My name is Chris Doering. I am from the Lucerne School of Art and Design. And together with my colleague, Claudia Ramsayer, who can't join today, unfortunately, I am responsible for our new PhD program for eco-social innovation by design. So before we start today's session, I would like to tell a little bit about the intention of this new format. So the format is called positionings, and that's exactly what it is about. We want to hear about very diverse and very different positions that help us to locate different approaches in art and design towards sustainable development. So from our point of view in this quite challenging time of global transformations, we need to look at very different viewpoints and hear about different standings, not only within our field, but also outside our field, and not only in our locations, but from different locations around the world. This format of positionings is part of our collaboration with the National Institute of Design in India. And I'm excited that we have a few guests joining from NID as well. And yeah, I'm very glad that you're all here joining us for the first session with Daniela Mazavan, who will talk about the global sustainability goals, the SDGs, and share her position on what design might have to contribute to this. Daniela, you speak many different languages, you wear many different hats, you navigate between different disciplines and different cultures. I'm very excited that you're here today. You are a design thinker, you are an innovator, an advisor, a researcher, lecturer, and a pioneer in co-working, but you're also a pioneer in sustainability and design. You helped the Academy for International Cooperation to set up a capacity building program for the Agenda 2030. You designed programs to connect decision makers in cities and municipalities around the world called Connective Cities. And you worked on the green economy policy implementation in Colombia and brought your expertise in to support higher education in Slovenia for systemic transformation towards climate resilience and sustainability. Yes, we're excited to have you here and looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris, for this lovely introduction. I have to say there are others who are much more pioneers in sustainability topics than I am, who have worked very, very hard since 20, 30 years on bringing the sustainability topic at the forefront of any endeavor. I guess I was just lucky to be surrounded by some of the people in my team who are incredibly sensitive to sustainability topics. And also as a design thinker and as someone who is very proficient in managing and facilitating the design process, I had the skills and tools and way of thinking at hand to tackle sustainability topics. So when I was surrounded by people who have put their whole career and passion into environmental, social, and economic sustainability, I was there pretty skilled and pretty ready to implement these complex issues. And that's why I'm here today, to empower everyone who has a designerly way of thinking and doing, to go and tackle and help tackle sustainability topics. You don't have to have studied a curriculum in renewable energy engineering, sustainability studies. These are all curricula that are out there. My former doctoral thesis coordinator, she did a PhD in sustainability like years ago. So there are people out there who have been working in this field for many, many years. But there's one interesting opportunity point and window that I found, which is we and you as designers who think like designers have actually the capabilities, the abilities, and the right mindset to tackle complex, wicked problems, such as sustainability problems. So that's why I'm here today, to talk to you a little bit about that, to try to inspire you to take a path towards including sustainability in whatever work you do as a product designer, experience designer, service designer, transformation designer, and to broaden your perspective as someone who is incredibly skilled to help reach the very ambitious sustainable development goals of the UN. I don't know if you have more questions, Chris, or should I start, or do we do a Q&A at the beginning? Well,
let's just start with the presentation,
okay.
And I guess then we will have many things to discuss.
Yeah.
I know in the audience we have people from very different fields with very different perspectives. It will be great to see different point of views afterwards. So let's start with your presentation and then have a discussion afterwards.
If I may, I would like to ask everyone to put down in the chat where they woke up today. So the city or the country where they are today. So I can have like a tiny little bit of an overview. Who are the 21 people listening right now? Can I see it in the chat? I guess I can, right?
I'm sorry, the chat is not enabled.
It's not enabled, okay.
Okay, let me see if I can fix that very quickly.
Okay, well, I'll just start by saying hello to Bettina, Andreas, Anna, Aisun, Caro, good morning, Christoph, or good afternoon, Daniela. Another Daniela, 3 Danielas here in the room, Elvira, Greta, Harshitu, Jan, Christoph, Johanna, Karina, Kshubu, Michael, Ottoni, Sabine, Tina, and Uwe, and Xen. Whenever the chat is open, oh yeah, you can write here. Yes, excellent. It works. Yes, it works.
Now it does work. Okay. Wonderful.
So I can see Zurich, Leipzig, Switzerland. Oh, hi, Xenia, nice. Berlin, Lucerne, Switzerland again. Delhi, Frankfurt. Excellent. Lucerne. Bucharest, oh, nice. I've been there last week. Verneuil, Switzerland, very nice. Now, since the chat is working, I'd like to know in what kind of sustainability projects you might have been involved. And here I'm pointing at the 3 types of sustainability, environmental, social, or economic sustainability. So maybe you've been involved in all 3 areas of sustainability. So maybe you can write down in what kind of sustainability project you might have been involved already. All 3 areas, environmental, Michael, environmental. 4 areas, Daniela, I forgot one area, please tell me. Culture, sure. Thank you. I had to put that into social. Eco-co-creation, municipal level, sustainable public services, strengthening democratic justice society. Thank you. Okay. Social and ecological. So I see everyone is pretty much present in this realm. Thank you so much. I'll start by all 4 carbon neutrality and urban planning projects. Thank you. So I'll start just by introducing a little bit myself again. I'm Daniela Marzan, I'm a academic, and I also in the academic area I wrote. I'm currently finishing a PhD at the Yada University in Lisbon on design thinking as a social practice. So I have a praxeologic perspective on design and the way designer thinks and do things. And this praxeological perspective has helped me to infuse designerly ways of doing and thinking into the policy design field, into transformation projects. This is a little bit the perspective I have on design, which is maybe a bit different. So I infuse organization studies, management studies, and arts into my writing and thinking about design. And since some of you might not have been so, I want to take you through a path of how, especially through the work that Christopher has pointed out at the beginning, how we came about to understand that our work as designer and design thinkers is pretty much needed in the area of transformation and sustainability, transformation towards sustainability. So as designers, we are involved in all different kinds of exercises: product design, service design, experience design, interaction design, process and organizational design, behavior design, nudging. I guess you are all very aware of these types of activities. And the other week I was at Jade in Lisbon, talking to a group of 60 students in global design studies. And I asked them to prototype what's their biggest challenge at the moment. And most of them put things like the new software we need to learn, maximize the full screen weight. Yes, Aysuk, did that work?
Yes, much better now.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. I thank you. And they were really upset about some of the things they need to learn in their curriculum, which is, dealing with pixels, dealing with very small challenges. They had to redesign the experience of tuk-tuk in the city of Lisbon. So one thing that we did was really to show them how in a project such as the green economy redesign in Colombia, which is a project that I want to show you at the end of this small lecture, actually encompasses all of these small tasks and all of these small skills that they are learning throughout their studies. How a project that tackles gentrification in Lisbon or in Oslo, another thing that we are working on right now, requires communication design skills, requires graphic design skills, requires exhibition design skills, requires interaction design skills, and how everything that you learn throughout their curricula that sometimes might feel annoying or hard, all those skills and crafts that they learn throughout their studies can, in the end, become a mosaic of skills that they can apply to larger projects. And it resonated to them because they understood, and this is a video that I encourage you to watch. It's pretty old, but always present. We started off with looking at the design process from designing products. And we know the stories, the amazing stories of designing Apple's new mouse, or designing beautiful objects that make our lives easier and nicer and more beautiful. And these are very tangible outcomes of a design process and of something that designers can do. And we figured out slowly in the last 15 years that we can apply the same process to designing experiences, to designing a whole other branch of untangible or less tangible outcomes. Look at like this, you can design the cup in a way that you don't burn your hands, but you can also take it further and design the whole cafe experience with the sounds, with the smell, with the noise, with the way you are being served. And you can take it further to a transformation design project where you maybe redesign the way a society is consuming coffee or not, the rituals around it, what it does with the community. This is more on a very intangible level, but designers can be involved in these types of activities too. And what I see from your chat, you all have been involved in these more intangible outcomes of design already. I think it's really important to remind students at a very early age, at a very early stage of studying, that they might start with product design or very tangible outcomes where they have a very clear user in mind to practice the process of designing. But the further they get and the more they understand about the complex interconnection of solutions they bring out there, the more they can use the same process that they've practiced over and over again for transformational projects. And maybe sometimes as teachers, we forget that. Maybe sometimes as people involved in large transformational projects since years, writing papers on policy design, we forget to remind Gen Z that what they are actually doing is practicing a process that will help them later to do more intangible projects. So this is maybe a call for the teachers out there who bring design closer to the young generation. And it's an observation I had last week with 60 global design students, that sometimes they forget the bigger picture because they're so busy with the everyday tasks they have to complete. And it's no wonder that we design in context, right? So it's something that has been with the design communities, with the architecture community, that you always design a thing by considering its next larger context. You design a chair in a room in a house in an environment in a city plan. This way of thinking, inherent to designers and to architects, is so much needed in the sustainability space. It's so much needed in the policy design space. And you have it. It's inherent to this discipline. And I think sometimes designers forget about that. I think sometimes designers forget that they're not only good at creating the new garment, 3D printed, that is absolutely amazing in the production, and they get into the very small details of the everyday research work and forget that they have a competency and a way of thinking that is much needed in today's world that is flooded by wicked problems, complex problems. Systemic thinking, that is something that is being brought up a lot lately, is something that designers inherently have in their discipline. And of course, you all know the process. This is something that I use a lot in my work. I know there are a lot of these kind of models, but something that I always was surprised how this absolute common sense of working in a project with uncertain outcome, which every sustainability project is managing uncertainty, managing chaos with a plan, I was always surprised to see how this iterative process that to all of you out there might seem absolute common sense and normal, to people I work with in public administrations, in corporations, managers, local administrators, politicians, but even people working in NGOs, volunteers, is it has an incredible aha moment. It has an eureka moment. Wow, we don't start right away with solutions. We actually do research up front. And that research has a plan and a structure, and there are methods to it that we can apply. So in this model that is from the D-School Stanford, and there are many other models like the double diamond and so on and so forth, I'm sure you might be very familiar with all the design thinking models out there. You start with divergent thinking, with understanding who are the stakeholders and what is the analysis of your political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental environment. When we work with the GIZ, the German Agency for Development, you mentioned some of the projects with them, but also when we worked with the Institute of the Mediterranean, it's a think tank of researchers that write policy recommendations and policy briefs for politicians that are active in the Mediterranean area, which is an area full of conflicts. So it encompasses Israel and Gaza conflict. It encompasses the conflicts in North Africa. So it's a very entrenched area of the world. And we had a big opportunity due to my colleague Georgeta Vedikan, which is a very accomplished policy advisor, to teach policy people who write policy recommendations, so researchers basically that sit in the institutes and make analysis, to teach them how to write that recommendation in a user-centric way. And I thought, well, it's absolute common sense. If you write a piece of recommendation, you think about the person who will receive that recommendation. Well, it turns out it's not. It turns out that making a pestle analysis with those incredibly smart researchers and looking at the political, environmental, social, technological, legal, and economic context around their recommendation, mapping that out visibly in a group of researchers on mural or physically, we did it in Barcelona, and then creating a stakeholder map. For that, we use a complex stakeholder mapping tool that we borrowed from management studies. And I can share it with everyone after this, where we map dangerous stakeholders, dormant stakeholders. These are the stakeholders you don't want to wake up. They'd better sleep while you make your solution happen. Urgent stakeholders, those are the stakeholders that like indigenous groups that need urgent attention, but maybe don't have so much power. Mapping all the stakeholders and then creating the point of view from which you write that policy briefing, the point of view from which you create that program for development. These red points here, the 3 steps here that are iterative and so on, and it's not linear, as you all know, have always provided me in environments where I thought, come on, I'm sure you work like that, with big aha moments. So my pledge and call to you as designers is, don't take it for granted that people work like that. Don't take it for granted when people say we did our research, that they actually did apply ethnographic field research, that they did go and collect those cultural probes to really, truly understand the stakeholders, that they even made a compelling analysis of all the stakeholders included, the visible and the invisible ones, and walked in their shoes and practiced empathy with them before creating the right solution for the wrong framed problem or for the ill formulated problem. And I think Lucius Burkhardt, the dean of the Bauhaus University, where we met, Chris, and I really love that speech of him, of the opening speech, 91, where he says, stop polluting the world with the right solution to ill-defined problems. So it's our responsibility and your responsibility as designers not to pollute the world with amazing solutions with problems that have been ill-defined. And you as designers have the knowledge, the methods, and the ability to facilitate that process. And I've been fighting for over 10 years to get institutions, corporations, companies to understand that this red phase of the process is half or maybe 70% of the project. And I have to tell you that the pandemic and the crises that we've had lately, and for sure, my team's maturity and way of putting things have now reached a point that organizations understand that this is where they need to start, and this is where they need to put 60–70% of their money, their time, the skilled people. And I want to encourage you to fight for that. To fight for that time and that money in this part of the process, that designers, together with ethnographers, with anthropologues, with qualitative research experts, sociologues, can actually be that glue between these disciplines in this first phase, in creating choices. And I want to give you some examples. You talked about some projects. So 2018-19, we conducted some sustainability trainings in Washington, D.C., always with the design thinking lens, always stating that if you build your capacity as a design thinker or as a person who works maybe for the World Food Program or for whatever organization, or in Washington, D.C. is full of NGOs working towards environmental sustainability mostly. And we work with USAID too. They have an incredible program, a theory of change that includes all design principles. So USAID is actually something to look at as a best practice of having designer ways of thinking and doing inherent to any program they lead. And working with sustainability trainings 2018 and 19, creating the Connective Cities Global Peer-to-Peer Learning Network for Sustainable Cities, advising the creation of green startup ecosystems by design thinking in 2014 and 15 in Egypt, and running the Green Economy Innovation Bootcamp 2017 in Colombia that I would like to show you at the end of this talk, were all projects where slowly, you see, started 2014, very unsecure of our skills and very fearful. Should we really bring up this design? Do people really understand that we can facilitate a multi-stakeholder dialogue through prototyping? Will they think it's silly to start building a national strategy with garbage, Lego? Well, I have to confess, when we ran this projects in Egypt, or I remember in Rwanda or in Colombia, we by far did not go and buy the fanciest Lego serious play kits or whatever is out there. We went to the garbage bins and took out cardboards and one-way coffee cups and leaves from the street and some pieces of wood, and then created and prototyped and modeled a joint understanding of a solution to a very complex problem, always after having researched the problem first. And in all of these projects, the aha moment was in the understand and observe phase. And the most important transformatory moment was the creation of a joint point of view from all stakeholders involved. And I'm not saying it's easy to bring all stakeholders at one table, Probably that's the most difficult part, to bring these stakeholders at one table. But you as designers are required to design the experience of these stakeholders, because that will be crucial of how they will work towards implementing their solutions. So designing that experience where you have to think of things like, how do you communicate? How is your flyer or your email, the language that you use, inclusive and encouraging and empowering and respectful to all those stakeholders that you invite, either if they're community leaders or they are politicians or they are people from businesses or from academia. Do you apply their languages? Is your discourse aligned with their disciplinary background and their cultural background? How do you involve their bodies in the process? Do you make any types of activities where they bring their full self in the room, in that complex multi-stakeholder dialogue, where they jointly decide about waste management in Egypt, where they jointly decide about how to tackle crises on a local level and share stories across the globe, where they jointly decide how to design the green economy strategy in the communities, in the Amazonas, in the cities. So do you bring the discourse and the language in? Do you bring their bodies in? And how do you do that? How do you design for the bodies to be there and for their embodied memory to be part of the conversation? How do you design for their embodied trauma and maybe things that have happened in the past that have prevented them to collaborate, to be part of the conversation? How do you design for the objects in the room, the artifacts, to be part of the conversation? And with that, I mean, it's a big difference if you go and use materials from the garbage and signal to your participants that we don't need money to collaborate. We don't need budgets to buy the most fancy materials. Everything is here around us. We can use the space that we have. We can use the resources that we maybe throw away. So how do you include those objects and those artifacts? And the ones with you, the ones that like the actor network theory, I'm sure they kind of see a lot of theory background there. Then how do you involve the structures, the bureaucracy, the hierarchies, and involve that or reflect that in the methods that you design for collaboration, in the canvases that you design, in the interactions that you design for that multi-stakeholder dialogue that you create? How do you involve the mindset and maybe twist a little bit the mindset, the linear mindset that people might have who come to the table, and invite them to be more creative? Maybe you use some creativity games here and there to wake up their creative self that they might have forgotten since many years. So all these elements, and in the social practice theory, it's 8 elements that you involve when you infuse a new practice in a group, are evenly important when you design a multi-stakeholder dialogue. And why am I talking all the time about multi-stakeholder dialogues? Well, we're here to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. These are 17. I'm sure you know all of them. I wanted to show you a video of these 17 goals because I think Chris said, well, maybe they don't know all of them. But I'm not sure the technology is helping us. You can't see the video, can you? No.
We can see a slide, but it's
Well,
apparently just a preview.
There. Yeah.
So if you manage to share your screen, then we can do that, or we can just
we'll just put the video.
talk about
We'll
it.
just put we will just put the video in the chat, right? Maybe that's the best. So I put it in the chat. It's a 1-minute video showing all the 17 global development goals, and I guess that's more than enough. So what is this about this 17 global development goals? Well, they're interlinked and integrated. And as opposed to the global, to the Millennium Development Goals, this and the Millennium Development Goals that have been, okay. So the predecessor of the Global Development Goals are the Millennium Development Goals, and one, to me, the biggest difference to the Millennium Development Goals that have been criticized a lot for leaving, especially the African continent, behind, for being very much in favor of development that helped, especially the global North. And for leaving out some important aspects of the most vulnerable groups. To me, the the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, have brought hope in two ways. First of all, it's a process of 2 years in which all these countries have came to a joint decision of a 15-year plan until 2030. That's why we talk a lot about Agenda 2030. And let alone this process of discussing and agreeing upon a document, upon the words in a document, was a great achievement. And then the SDG 17, which I think is the most important one, is the one that explicitly asks for multi-stakeholder dialogue, for non-hierarchical collaboration between the North, the global North, and the global South, and asks for user-centeredness, for planet-centeredness, for radical multidisciplinarity, and for early collaboration through prototyping. And it's always been clear that the 17 goals are interconnected. The 17 goals have a lot of sub-goals, I think 169 or something like that. And there is something else that I observed with a lot of positivity, which is there's been a lot of visual design has been put in communicating these goals. It has been brought to a level that if before in the Millennium Development Goals, only like some sustainability geeks or maybe people from the policy area really knew that they exist and what they are and who they and what exactly has to be done. Maybe people from the development work cooperation, or maybe engineers who work in renewables knew exactly what it is about. But everyday humans, especially the ones working in the free economy, had little knowledge about that. Well, the SDGs right now are everywhere. So here again are the 17 SDGs. The last one, Partnership for the Goals, is the one that encompasses basically the idea that you need strong multi-stakeholder dialogue processes to create, to decide which one solution will create 10 other problems for another goal, and why you decide still for that. And you need a holistic understanding and this dialogue. But lately, the SDGs have become like the teenage sex of sustainability. And why do I say that? Because everyone talks about it. Nobody really knows how to do it, but everyone thinks that the other one is doing it. So everyone claims that they are doing it. And when I say they, I mean a lot of corporations, a lot of companies, universities have started to put some SDG icons on their in their buildings. So I walked through various buildings of universities in last month, where I was as a guest lecturer, and you could see all these icons everywhere showing up here and there. And I talked to a lot of corporate leaders who say, as a leader today, you need to respect the SDGs. I'm like, what are the SDGs? Well, I don't know. I think we are on number 15 and 4 and 3 or something. There is someone doing it there, but we have to do it. So it's positive and it's negative at the same time. I think it's great that the communication is really big, that most of companies or actors in the society feel the pressure that 2030 is approaching, and we have this joint global goals to reach. And at the same time, I do think that designers are needed more than ever to help create those multi-stakeholder partnerships I was talking about, to help create that joint understanding, and to help bring the SDGs forward. Because fragmentation is the wickedest of the wicked problem of humankind, which is not talking the same language. And here I mean the people working in the life and land SDG don't talk the same language as the people working in quality education, SDG number 4, or the people working in gender equality, SDG number 5, or the people working in clean water and sanitation. First of all, having that label and that one SDG icon on your website or whatever you do, I understand it's something that you need to follow some indicators or to get some funding. And it's an easy way to visualize what you're working on. But the translation part between how all these SDGs are interconnected, and the translation part to how only as a joint group you can decide which one problem, wicked problem, you want to address, and how that solution will definitely affect many other problems, and deliberately design for failure in other fields, and jointly deciding why that is the best of the many solutions that you might have developed is something where I know designers are required, and we need to see designers as the ones that overcome the sometimes lost in translation solution finding in big complex problems. So the Tower of Babel was a failure because I think God wanted that group to fail. He was afraid that they will take over, and divided them by language. And within the 16 SDGs, the language problem is something that is out there a lot, is a huge impediment through collaboration. And designers can strengthen that implementation through multi-stakeholder dialogue, because they communicate through beyond language, through body, through objects, through symbols, and they can design this kind of multi-stakeholder dialogue. So I think I want to give you an example. First of all, I want to remind you that all sustainability problems are wicked problems. And wicked problems have some attributes that I will go through quickly. I see some questions in the chat. And we as designers can actually tackle wicked problems. And it's something that is well known since the 70s or 80s, that wicked problems, Rittel and Weber have first coined this term and have actually helped us track the 10 attributes that make a problem a wicked problem. I want to read through these attributes really quickly, and then give you a moment to pause and reflect on how you as designers can actually attack these wicked problems. So, attribute number 1, you know you have a wicked problem. There is no definitive formulation of a wicked problem. So you have to decide with your stakeholders, what is the formulation you will take. Wicked problems have no stopping rules. Once you've defined them, they didn't stop to evolve. So from the moment of definition until you try to design a solution, they might have changed. So you need an iterative process to always go back to the initial definition. Number 3, solutions to wicked problems are not true or false, but better or worse. And sometimes, especially in corporations, you want to have the right solution, right? And that doesn't work always. So in this case, the solutions will always be better or worse and not the perfect solution. Number 4, there is no immediate or no ultimate test of a solution to a wicked problem. So you never know if that solution will actually work until you test it, which means you have to manage uncertainty, which in large programs sometimes is difficult because you establish the indicators for success even before the project starts, which mostly is like 4 years before the project starts. Number 5, every solution to a wicked problem is a one-shot operation because there is no opportunity to learn by trial and error. Every attempt counts significantly. And this was very interesting to point out in our Connective Cities project, where in the middle of the pandemic, we had cities talk about their good practices of fighting the pandemic, either in, sanitation, water, health, education. And we always pointed out, we are sharing these stories. We are not sharing best practices. That's why we kind of moved the word to good practices. So we managed through language to say, okay, this is not a best practice that everyone should copy paste. It's a good story, so get inspired. Number 6, wicked problems do not have an exhaustively describable set of potential solutions, nor is there a well-described set of permissible operations that may be incorporated into the plan. I think this connects to number 5. Number 7, every wicked problem is essentially unique. So all those manuals that McKinsey bring out on how to implement corporate sustainability by doing A, B, C, D are basically an orientation, maybe inspiration. And I think, again, it's the task of designers who create those, even in corporation, those processes to point that out over and over again. Number 8, every wicked problem can be considered to be a symptom of another problem. So you design in context, and the farther you get from the chair to the city plan, you always have to go back to the chair and see if that, how that affects and how that problem is part of another system. Number 9, the existence of discrepancy representing a problem can be explained in numerous ways. The choice of explanation determines the nature of the problem's resolution. So the way you define your problem, the choice that you make in that early multi-stakeholder dialogue process will define the nature of the problem. But it's absolutely mandatory that you document that process and you make it clear. This is the definition made by this group of people in this process. And we decided for this perspective because, and everyone can track it back, your research, and go and take another perspective. And this humility of understanding that your perspective and what you decided in a small group to be the definition of the problem is a very maybe opportunistic moment that you took in that particular negotiation that you had. And number 10, and that was very clear in the pandemic, the planner has no right to be wrong. So wicked problems, solutions to wicked problems might be decisive for life or death. And that's a huge pressure to work with uncertainty. And we saw it in the pandemic. And there is a specific mindset needed to hold on that pressure when lives matter, when you have not the right to be wrong, but you know, according to the last definitions of wicked problems, that there is no way to test it up front to see if you are right or wrong. And working with that mindset and working with that strength is absolutely decisive from what we've seen.
Daniela, we
Yes.
have 8 more minutes left. Let's maybe allow at least one question, but
yes.
I know you have more to say.
I think I will just send you, let me see. So there is this one video that I wanted to share with you, but I will just put it here in the chat, which is wait, what? So what we developed is wait. Sorry. Okay. It's the taxonomy of social practice, where we see every design process as something that encompasses knowledge, space, body, mind, things, discourse, language, and structure. And what I wanted to give you maybe as a gift to watch later is a 7 minutes video of the process that we run with the green economy strategy for implementing green economy in Colombia, a country that has been subject to conflicts, armed conflicts for the last 60 years, and where 4 years ago, when we implemented the green economy strategy and the multi-stakeholder dialogues with people that hadn't talked before, that had conflicts that were rooted back in a very traumatizing history, now work together and now collaborate. And what I like about this project, it was designed and implemented by a team of 14 designers, all of them. I have a background in political science, so I'm running my PhD on design thinking as a process, so I will not count myself to that. But the group of purely educated designers was the ones that have designed the process, the artifacts, the objects, the space, the methods, and 4 years later we can say it worked. So I guess my call to action for professors is, how can you enhance the skills and courage in your students to tackle sustainability problems? And how will you include the SDGs in your syllabus in the future? My call for researchers is, how will you add SDGs to the conference tracks of your next conference? And how can you add new perspective and design theory lens to sustainability, and add that perspective to sustainability studies? And to students is, will you dare to make an internship in the policy field now? Will you dare to apply as a design student to tackle the field of policy design, transformation design, and sustainability? I hope so. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniela. Thank you so much. That was a great introduction, I think, and you raised some very interesting questions or topics. We have 5 more minutes left. That's not too much, but if you have a question or something you want to say, you can raise your hand and then I can unmute you. I think that's the way it works with this webinar setup. 1 second, I see there is.
Yes, Sabine.
Sabine, yeah. Sorry, just 1 second. Oh, there it is. Sabine, now you're on the panel.
Okay, so now I'm unmute. Hi, Daniela. Well, thanks, first of all, for joining us here and for sharing this work. I'm, of course, very in favor of sharing this kind of work that goes very close to what we're doing in the Competence Center and where my background is as well. So the one question that I have, and actually I have 2 questions for you. You know, so many students are coming and saying, or young designers, and they say they want to work in the policy field. And you and I know that you cannot just enter into this wild jungle of a wicked, a jungle full of wicked problems. And I wonder what you have in terms of recommendations for, let's say, students who are studying right now. I know we have a couple of PhD students here on the list right now, and maybe this is targeting only PhD students, but even there, they lack the kind of exposure, I would say,
yeah.
and the confidence building. And so maybe speak a little bit to how you got into that, because I think that is what we need to also clarify a little bit more, that this doesn't happen by accident, and that you need to have, like you said, you need to have the management experience, you need to have the organization experience, you need to have the actual design experience, you need to have da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da, and you listed it all in your first slide. So how would you recommend for someone to start this kind of journey?
Thank you. I answered this question just a week ago in Bucharest, so 2 weeks ago, when a student asked exactly that. And my recommendation from the heart is to make volunteer work in the study time. So to engage in all kinds of volunteering activities with NGOs, with local communities, to build your own initiative, political initiative, because I think the study years and the years before you enter like the full-time normal, whatever that is, are the years where we need to test and try, and where curiosity and failing are the best teachers. And I can share a bit of my story. As at a very early age, I was involved in saving my mother tongue, which is Macedo-Latin, is a small minority language that is endangered to go extinct. So I was part of groups that go to the European Council and make lobbying for this language, and create conferences for linguists to talk about the value of minority language and how that will bring Europe further. These were things that you can do as a young person who doesn't have many responsibilities, that require a lot of work, a lot of dedication, a lot of passion, but where you learn so much by observing, by being around diplomats, by being around policymakers. Then if you talk about management or labor experience, all the jobs that I was lucky to do to finance my studies. And I was lucky to have the necessity to do some jobs to finance myself, because they taught me so much about how to manage a team in a coffee place, how to manage sales in a jeans shop, how to design a learning experience in a snowboard school where I was working as a snowboard teacher, how to empathetically translate in the language of others when I was teaching German as a foreign language for refugees. So yeah, I hope that kind of answered a little bit my question. It's really a combination of doing volunteer work with NGOs, doing side jobs, and always with an open eye, analyzing what did I learn from this, and not always having this Kosten-Nutzen-Kalkül. So this, oh, I don't do this because I don't get the money.
So would you recommend The Reflective Practitioner maybe by Donald Schoen? You didn't talk a lot about, literature and stuff on which you're building. I could tell there's a lot of stuff that you're standing on. That would be nice, I think, also for doctoral students to hear a little bit that this is not something we just start, but that there is maybe something we're standing on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So maybe we can send some extra information. Unfortunately, our time is up for this session. The good news is there will be many more sessions like this. Thank you so much, Daniela, and also thank you for your personal insights. It was fantastic, and I wish we had more time to discuss, but maybe we can also create another forum where we can keep
so I have some 10 more minutes more. If someone wants to stay longer, I apologize for taking more of the time. Okay,
that's fantastic. Then I would like to close the session officially with the information that we have Rebecca Reubens coming up next time on the 1st of December, same time on Zoom again, so 11 o'clock European time, and it would be 3:30 Indian time. Rebecca Reubens is an eco-entrepreneur and alumna from National Institute of Design from Ahmedabad, and she will talk on handcraft and local approaches to holistic sustainability. And yeah, Daniela, you're also welcome to join, and everyone else. I hope, yeah, by having very broad perspectives on topics of sustainability, it will open up the discussion and we can address it from different angles. So thank you very much for you, Daniela, and for everyone joining. See you next time. You can again sign up through the website, and everyone who wants to stick around and discuss is welcome to do so. Daniela offered generously 10 more minutes for the discussion. Thank you so much. And I guess you have to raise your hand and I have you unmute you, or see you next time. Thank you so much.
So someone is asking for the stakeholder mapping tool. I'm very happy to share that. Thank you, Bettina.
So there is one question. I hope you can talk now. Yes, you can unmute yourself. Perfect.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Daniela. It's Khushbu from Delhi, India. I wanted to know, you spoke extensively about wicked problems. I just wanted to know that in the kind of projects that you've done in different countries and even in your own, did you ever have any sort of problems in dealing with people or communities where there would have been a mismatch of the narratives that you were building? So for example, you go out and you say that you want to bring about a change, or you want to better something, a service or a design, but let's say the people they are not on the same page. So how do you work with, let's say, if you're looking at systems and you're looking at people, you've spoken about dormant stakeholders also, right? So how do you deal with people who are not willing to act?
There is almost always a mismatch of what designers are planning to do, what the community thinks to be done, what the politicians have in their 4-year plans until they get reelected, and what the corporates have in their 90 days plan until the next quarter is around the corner, because they get paid by quarterly bonuses. So everyone has another, and then you have the researchers who, you know, take 3 years to publish one paper, so they have a very slow pace, and the corporates have a very quick pace, and the politicians have a very opportunistic pace, and the local communities have a very like heart-driven long-term of 30 years phase. So bringing all those velocities to here and now is a very complex challenge. And sometimes you tap, as I said, into trauma that has not been healed. Many times. It was especially the case in Colombia, but actually many times you tap into, and in corporations, you know, you tap into mergers and acquisitions that have not been done correctly, where people just think from their ego and from their pain and don't think about solving the solution. So how do you do about that? First of all, when I see the problem is more on a psychological level and needs coaching and therapy, I point to that. And I have some persons I work with that are trained in that field and that are very good at mediating conflicts that go deeper on a more psychological level, where you need therapists and you need people to really very carefully untangling those knots that are like this. So never think that you as a designer or a facilitator of conversation can tap into that field. So the first thing that I've learned is to keep your hands away from problems that are so deeply rooted in past conflicts that you cannot solve. So take that away, slice it up, and try to kindly point out at people who can help there, and that's a long process. Then, and this is an extreme, but I want to point that extreme first, right? Because a very aggressive no to change or collaboration always has something in the back that's deeper. It's a wound that is very old, or a conflict that is very old. So you can dive into that with research methods, with design research methods. And then when you reach some points where you say, oh God, okay, what I'm seeing here is something that surely is not my competency. Make sure that you don't make it your competency, because that can be very messy. Then when you have the rest of the people that, let's say, are not aligned because of lack of information, lack of understanding what this is really about, the best solution is to involve everyone in the research phase. So really, really make sure that you build capacity very low key on how to use ethnographic research. And I'll give an example. We had a waste management project in Egypt, Cairo, 2014, I think. And we went with some students and we wanted to, tackle the problem of waste being not separated and being thrown in the local rivers, infecting the water, infecting the crops, affecting the quality of the food, and so on, like a whole circle. So we had university students that had very clear solutions that they made in their class. But then we went to the field and to the people in the villages where that river was flowing through. And we took everyone on a walk through the mud to the river. They all had their shoes dirty. And we were trying to get to know the garbage. So we were collecting it, looking at it, trying to find out the story that the garbage had, and so on and so forth. It was very awkward for everyone to do this kind of research. We took pictures, we took videos. And when we came back analyzing that garbage, one of the most interesting things was that they were toothpaste that was way too expensive for the local villagers to buy it. You had yogurt cups that were like this one-person yogurt cups that were clearly coming from the city, from the rich people. So the type of garbage that was there was clearly the type of garbage that in that village no one would use, because that package was expensive package. So the program that the city students had to educate the villagers how to divide, was all of the sudden, but that was something that, it was clear for the students as well, like, whoa, I think maybe we need a program to educate the city people. And it was clear for everyone. Yeah. And everyone was like, oh, okay. So create these moments of joint aha in the research phase. And yeah, that's my advice. And make sure like everyone understands a bit how you do qualitative research and field research. They don't need like a 3-year study on that, and make it playful and curious. And then they will reach some conclusions themselves. And then everyone jointly worked on that, and that was really nice. So, yeah.
That is a great example, Daniela. And I'm glad that you are a practitioner and those examples from going to the field and can share those experiences. Are there any other questions or comments? You have to raise your hand and then I can allow you to unmute yourself. This is how it works in this setup. I don't see any other hands raised. So, yeah, I guess it was very inspiring. It was very good to also hear these anecdotes and stories from yeah, from the practice. And yeah, I think
Thank you.
it was also very good to hear that there are very straightforward recommendations on how to enter into this field. And I do think that a lot of designers are not even aware that this might be a field they can actually get into and do amazing work. So thank you so much, Daniela.
Thank you.
Then I wish you a great day, and everyone, please join our session on 1st of December. Sign up through our website.
Thank you, Chris. Keep up the amazing work that you do.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate
and,
your invitation.
See you soon.